Going, Julian Bradley here. Welcome to another session of this is Ear Training Live. I was going to say everyday ear training. This is Ear Training Live. This happens every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and looks like we have 2 people online. So I'll just wait a second for this to pick up. If you're watching the replay, look in the description box below because I'll have put timestamps. So the first few minutes is just going to be me welcoming people. But if you look in the comments below, you can skip ahead. Okay, now we have people logging on. 23 people, hi. Paul White, I'm going to put my glasses on now. Okay, so I have 3 songs for us today. I have an Ed Sheeran song. I have I Love You Too, Cuba. Hi sir, hello everyone, Lorenzo, Hiram. Great to see you all here. So I have 3 songs today. We're going to do some Ed Sheeran. Then we're going to do the Gorillaz song that I didn't have time for last time. And then finally, I'm going to do an Usher song, You Remind Me. So we have some common shapes coming up, which we're going to look at. I'm going to try and keep this close to an hour. And everyone's logging on. Wow, 79 people already. Okay, hello Arthur, Karen, Carlos, something about blues please. Unfortunately, I have a set schedule. We're going to be focusing on 3 transcribing case studies. I will be asking you questions while I transcribe the songs. Everyone logging on now. Okay, hey, Danny, Steve, David, Fletcher, hello. Great to have you all on. 86 people, hello. Paul, great to have you here. So I hope you're in the mood for some ear training. We're going to be taking some modern day popular songs. We're going to be transcribing everything in C minor, which is also E flat major. They're the same key. So I don't know what the original key is of these songs that we're going to transcribe. And hello Lewis, hello Milo, hello Moot. So I don't know the original keys of these songs, but we're just going to listen to them as though they're in C minor, and we're going to figure out the notes and the chord progressions in the key of C minor. So we've got 91 people on. I think this is a good place to start. So our first song is going to be Ed Sheeran, Shape of You. And I have to arrange this so that you can't see the notes. Okay. Let's see, how's that? Okay. Kerry Zimmerman, good to see you. So hopefully you've heard this song before. This is Ed Sheeran, Shape of You. Let me just adjust the camera slightly. Okay, so we're going to start with the chord progression. So how do we transcribe chord progressions? Shape of You is perfect. Great. Stephen, glad you're happy with this song. So to transcribe chord progressions, you have to focus on the bass line, because the bass line virtually always plays the root of the chord above. And although, we can talk about chord inversion, the fact is it's very rarely used. I would say that 99.999% of chords are played in root position. So it works very well to transcribe the bass line and have those bass notes tell you what the notes are above. So listen to the bass line, listen to my left hand. What do you think the starting note is? This is the starting note in the key of C minor, E flat major. Can you have a guess at what this note is? Emil has said C. That's absolutely correct. It's very common for bass lines to start on a C. David as well. C is the root of the scale is the most likely starting note. We're in C minor here. Anyone who's joining us, I'm transcribing this as though it's in C minor. So the most common starting note for a bass line is going to be C, the root. And the same almost applies for melodies. Quite common for melodies to start on the root as well. So this bass line, the first note is a C. Can you tell me what the next few notes are? this case, it jumps down by quite a big leap. And descending intervals, especially when they're a big leap, is probably the hardest type of interval to identify by ear. But if we just listen to the whole bass line, we don't actually have to figure out the descending interval. There's another way to do this. Let's just skip the second note and go to these last two notes. What interval pattern is that? That's 2 whole steps, and in fact this is one of the common shapes we looked at last time in our last live stream. It goes A flat, B flat, and C. This is a very common chord shape. This bass line pattern is very common. We looked at this last time. We looked at In the End by Linkin Park. We looked at it in another song, I forget which one it was, but so if we skip the first note when it goes down by the big leap, we can just tackle the end of this chord progression. We can spot this common shape. 2 whole steps in the bass line is almost always going to be these 3 chords. A flat major, oh yeah, it was Terminator. Paul White, yes, it was Terminator last time. So a lot of songs have this pattern in its bass line. In fact, I can guarantee the rest of today you will hear this bass line pattern quite a few times in songs. So we have the last 3 chords figured out. A flat major, B flat major, and it starts on C minor because we know that C in the bass is going to be a C minor chord. So we just have 1 chord left. Instead of figuring it out as a descending interval, can you hear the interval that it goes up to the A flat? If we focus on this interval rather than the bigger interval, what interval is this? Da, 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 da. It's a minor third, so what's a minor third below A flat? Minor third below A flat is going to be F, so that's the second note, and F would indicate what type of chord? Is it an F major or an F minor chord? Well, in the key of C minor, it would be F, A flat, and C, so it's going to be F minor, the 4 chord. So we have the chords now: C minor, F minor, A flat major, and B flat major. And once you've figured out the chords, you have the chord progression for the whole song, because this whole song just loops the same chord progression. So in some ways chords are actually easier, because once you've figured them out, it tends to just get repeated a lot. Now let's take a look at the melody. Let's just tackle the first part. Can you hear a common shape in there? This was the common shape we looked at last time. In our key, if you hear a minor third with 2 whole steps, almost guaranteed to be 1 location in the scale. And this is the root, this is C, C, E flat, F, G. So this is one of the shapes from the pentatonic scale. This is C minor pentatonic scale, and this melody I think is entirely pentatonic. So it goes C, B flat, C, this is quite a big interval. Do we have to figure it out? Well, if you let the melody keep playing, the melody actually bridges the gap between the two notes. So yes, it is a fifth Milo. It is a fifth, but you don't even have to really figure it out, because the melody, if you let it just keep playing, it sort of bridges the gap between the two notes, and you hear that it's this common shape. One of probably the second most common shape of all time in a melody. You hear this all the time, and Ed Sheeran here is just using this common shape. It's basically the notes C, E flat, F, G, and you can hear it just playing them in different patterns. So it goes C, B flat, C, G, F, 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 G, F, E flat, C, E flat, G, F, F, C, C, B flat, C, G, F. So it's just a pentatonic melody. Most melodies are pentatonic, and a lot of the common shapes are just little segments of the pentatonic scale. So we've now done the hard part. Once you've identified the first 3 or 4 notes, it tells you where you are within the key, and we can now just hear the melody play these over and over again. There'll be a lot of repeated notes. I'm sorry I didn't see the name, but someone just said Game of Thrones. Yes. The soundtrack to the TV show Game of Thrones uses this common shape. A lot of songs use this shape, and in fact, when I was learning to play by ear, when I started spotting this shape, that's when transcribing started to click for me, because the vast majority of songs you do hear this shape at some point in them. Melodies. Can anyone else think of any songs that use this? Little section from Another One Bites the Dust. And these shapes can go either way. It can go up or down, or any different sort of combination within you know, like this Ed Sheeran. Lots of different variations. Okay, let's see how far we've got. We've basically done the hard work now. We're just going to listen for repeated notes. And if we ever get lost, then just listen out for this common shape, and it'll keep reminding you where the melody is within the key of C minor. How about this note? In C minor, which note is this? Yes, Movok, I think, is a B flat. That's correct. Well done, everyone. Because this is a pentatonic melody, it's using notes from C minor pentatonic scale. And a lot of melodies just use the pentatonic scale. A lot of melodies will just use these 5 notes. So when it goes up, it's not going to A flat, because that would be quite unusual. It's going up to B flat because it's a pentatonic melody. Then we have repeated notes. B flat, G, G, F, E flat, C, F, F, G, And that's just our common shape. So really, we've basically transcribed this. In fact, I consider these three notes as a separate common shape. I actually call this common shape number 1. E flat, F, G. A lot of songs just use these three notes. Three Blind Mice, a lot of country songs. So that really I consider as a separate common shape is E flat, F and G. So in our major scale of E flat major, that would be the root second and third, or in the minor scale, if you're thinking from C minor's point of view, that's going to be the third, the fourth and the fifth. So that's the minor third, the fourth and the fifth. But in this case we actually do get the full shape, the sort of second common shape, which is C, E flat, F, G. So we've now transcribed Ed Sheeran's Shape of You. So, well done guys, that's the section I wanted to look at. There is more to the song, but that's the most interesting part, I'd say. Now I've seen some comments coming in. Someone was asking about Oasis Wonderwall. Which one's Wonderwall? Is that the one? Sally Adams says that was surprisingly simple. It almost always is. When you find out the answer, it's really not that complicated. It's only complicated before it sort of clicks and you're listening to music and you don't know what it is. It seems much more complicated than it actually is. But every time when you find out the answer, it's always quite a simple answer. It's usually the same 4 chords, if not 6 chords. Being used over again from one song to the next, and it's the same few notes and melodic shapes, and often there's a lot of repetition as well. So once you've figured out the first 4 or 5 notes, you're just going to hear those notes being repeated and repeated to different rhythms, and the same for the chords. Once you've figured out the chords, they just get repeated and repeated and repeated. So yes, it is surprisingly simple. In fact, probably all of the songs we transcribe in this session are going to be surprisingly simple. So let's move on to the next, you're welcome Sally. So let's go to the next song. This is going to be the Gorillaz Feel Good Inc. And this was the song that we didn't get to the last time. So it goes like this. I want to start with the bass line, but it's the song that goes... Start with the bass line in C minor. Which notes is this bass line playing? And maybe I could just do a quick round of thumbs ups. If you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. And also I should say, if you have a request for the next Ear Training Live, you can put your song request in the comments, and after this is finished I'm going to read through all of the comments and try to use some of your songs in the next session. So you can comment any song that you request, and I'll try to put some of them in the next session. So this bass line. What's the most logical starting note for a bass line in the key of C minor? I think a lot of people already have it. Most logical starting note is going to be C, as with the last song, and as with the next song, and as with every other song. Most common bass note to start on is always going to be C. And in this bass line, it starts on a C. So if this starts on a C, what are the next few notes? It's just running up the scale. We know the notes of C minor scale. C, D, E flat. Then it jumps. Miles is saying G, F. A good guess is actually A flat, G. And how do I know that, apart from the fact that I'm playing it? Well, you can use this concept of tension notes and resolution notes to help here. So the root and the fifth of the scale are always going to be resolution notes. They sound very resolved and they don't need to move anywhere. And any notes surrounding those notes are generally going to, well, always going to sort of be attracted to resolve to those notes. So can you hear that this note is a tension note and it's resolving down a half step? And when I hear that this is a resolution note and that the bass line stays on this, it tells me that this is the G, this is the fifth of the scale. And that this was a tension note, this was an A flat resolving to G. And Miles is saying, so obvious now. Well, that's how it always is. When you figure out the answer, it's so obvious, but when you don't know the answer, it seems like this really intimidating thing. So this is a G. What's the final part? Got some repeated notes in there. G goes down a note within our scale. That's going to be F. Then you hear that tension note pattern repeating. This is A flat to G, and then it makes its way back to the root. You hear that minor third at the end, that's E flat, C. So, and really good job guys, I'm watching the comments, you're really nailing this. So C, C, D, E flat, A flat, G, F, F, A flat, G, E flat, C. So main concepts with this bass line, it starts on the root, that's to be expected, and you can also listen out for this tension note, resolution note concept. It's common for melodies and bass lines to sort of start on the root and make their way up to the fifth and then make their way back to the root. That's a very common sort of shape for melodies, and really this bass line isn't a normal bass line, this is more playing a melody itself, whereas a lot of bass lines just play the root of the chord above. But in this case, this is actually a melody that's being played in the bass line. And because this is a melody, you can sort of ignore the norm where the bass note usually plays the root of the chord above. Well, in this case, because this is a melody, this bass line is not playing the root of every chord above. There's not all, loads of different chords going on. Essentially, this is just a C minor chord being sustained, and the bass line is just playing a melody. Okay, so we transcribed the bass line. Now let's move to the main melody that's sung by the singer for the chorus. Let's listen to the melody. What notes do you think these are? Again, we're in the key of C minor here. Does that sound familiar to you? Hopefully it does. It's quite a common thing to play on the piano. Yep, people are guessing this. This is correct. It's running up the scale starting from the root, which is C, D, E flat, F, G. C, D, E flat, F, G. And in fact, this is a common shape of its own. I class this as a common shape. You've heard it in lots of melodies. In fact, maybe you can comment of some melodies that you can think of, but very normal common shape for composers to use. And it can go both ways. It can go descending as well. So G, F, E flat, D, D, C. That's a bit of an obscure song. That's a Paul Oakenfold song. An Outkast song, So Fresh, So Clean. Unfortunately, I don't know that one. I haven't heard it before. Okay, anyway, it's a common shape. C, D, E flat, F, G. A lot of songs use this common shape. In fact, my daughter this week has been watching a movie. She's only 2, but it's called Leap. And it has a sort of, it's not Katy Perry, but it's a song along those lines. Does anyone know that? I think it's called Confident or something. But anyway, it starts with the common shape. Okay, so this is a common shape. This is worth remembering. When you're listening to music, if you hear this pattern of running up the minor scale, it's almost guaranteed to be C, D, E flat, F, G within our key of C minor. Okay, someone's got it. It's Demi Lovato, I think. Anyway, so this song starts, the chorus, C, D, E flat, F, G. Can you transcribe the rest of this melody? Which 2 notes are these? Starts on a G. People doing great at this. Someone says B flat. B flat's a good logical guess because that would be sort of close to the minor pentatonic scale. However, it's actually a bigger leap in this one. It goes up to C. How can we test that though without using our instrument? Well, you could sing the gap, then you could bridge the gap with a stepping stone. In this case, I'm singing a minor third and a whole step, which tells me that it's more than just a minor third, it's actually a fourth. So it's a G going up to a C. A B flat would sound like this. Would certainly sound good, but in this case, the melody is actually going up to the root. Whoops, wrong note. How about this part? What notes are these? So again, C, D, E flat, F, G, C, G. David Fletcher says there are no wrong notes. I agree. although I think that actually was a wrong note. So this is pentatonic. It's quite similar to our shape actually, because G, C, G, F, E flat, C. There's that shape again. You hear it in pretty much every song, and in fact it's just such a good shape to use to tell you where the melody is within the key. If I could teach you just one common shape, it would be this. You just get so much use out of this shape. So G, C, G, F, E flat, C, E flat. Lots of repeated notes in there. F, E flat, C, E flat, F. What are these three notes to end? So F. Okay, so Emil says E flat, D, C. Is that correct? Well, we already heard that this is an E flat because we heard F, F, E flat, C, E flat, F. This is a new note. This isn't E flat because we heard that this was the E flat. That's correct. It's actually D, C, B flat. Another way to figure this one out is you could just let it play on and then you hear the melody repeat, and we already know what the melody starts on. It starts on a C. So then it starts again. So sometimes in transcribing you work backwards. So you just leave something as blank and unknown, but then when it comes back to the part that you do know, it tells you that, oh, that must have been D, C, B flat, C. C, D, E flat, F, G, C, G, F, E flat, C, E flat, F, D, C, B flat. So, well done, we just did the melody for Feel Good Inc. by Gorillaz. Let's just finish with the chords though. What are we going to listen to? We're going to listen to the chords. No, we're going to listen to the bass line. First two notes, can you tell me? That's correct, Miles. C, B flat. This is a big descending leap. This is tricky. Take a guess. Yeah, people are doing really good here. That's correct. C, B flat, F, and then G. So what four chords would be indicated by these four bass notes? The C is going to be, is it a C major chord? No, it's going to be a C minor chord. B flat in the bass. Within our key of C minor, do we get a B flat minor chord? No, it's going to be B flat major. Then we have a F. What type of chord? Is that going to be an F major or an F minor? It's going to be an F minor chord. And then we have a G. Is this going to be a G major chord or a G minor chord or a G dominant 7? I saw someone just commented. G dominant 7 is a good guess, but sometimes you will get a dominant 7, especially if it's going for a harmonic minor type of sound, like this. But in this case, it sounds very normal, which is a sign that it's just normal diatonic, natural minor, and relative major. It doesn't have that grandiose sound that you'd get from a G dominant 7, which would sound more like classical music. That's how a G dominant 7 would sound. So this is just, it's the Gorillaz. It's not. It sounds like a normal diatonic pop song. So it's F minor going to G minor, C minor, B flat major, F minor, G minor. Are we finished yet? We've figured out the melody on its own, and we've figured out the chords on their own. Is there any final step? Well, there is a final step that I like to do, which is, and by the way, this is assuming that I was doing all this away from the instrument. Of course, I'm playing this here, but if I was just listening to the radio and I wasn't at my instrument, I would figure out the melody notes, then I'd figure out the chords. There's one final step I like to do, which is I like to just check that the melody notes and the chords seem to line up with each other. What do I mean by line up? Well, usually the composer chooses chords which contain the melody notes in them when they're choosing their chord progressions. They're going to look for chords that contain the melody notes in them when they're accompanying a melody. So for example, if there's a C minor chord in the chord, then I'd want my melody to play either a C, an E flat, or a G, or all three, or just two of them. That would be a good, strong sign that I have the right answer, because my melody and my chord are pointing to the same thing. And indeed, this melody starts C, D, E flat, F, G. So it has all three of those notes. It has the root, the third, and the fifth. C, E flat, G. And it just has these in-between notes, which are sort of passing notes. I'd be a bit concerned if my melody ended on an A flat, and I thought that the chord was a C minor. That would be an alarm bell. That would be a signal that I have the wrong answer, at least in the melody or the chords. So this melody lines up, goes up to the fifth, which is G. Chord changes to B flat major, and here's where it ruins the thing that I'm trying to teach you, because this is one of the few cases where it actually doesn't line up for this one chord. But I'm fairly confident I have the right chord, because we absolutely know that this is C minor, and it's not a difficult chord to figure out, that it just goes down a note, which is B flat major. And it's not the strangest thing in the world to have some chords which don't line up, but the melody as a whole I want to generally line up with my chords. So let's keep going. The chord here is F minor. What were our melody notes? They were F, E flat, C. Is that a match? That's a match. It has two notes from the chord. That's a good strong sign. So it has an F and a C. I would be a bit worried if the melody had a D in it and it was really playing a D. That wouldn't really line up. I would be worried if there was a B flat in the melody and it was just repeating it or really sustaining it. So this lines up. F, F, E flat, C. That looks like a match. And then the final chord. The chord is G minor, and our melody plays D, C, B flat. Is that a match? Yes, that's a good match. It's got two notes of the chord, has the D and the B flats, which are both chordal tones of G minor. So I'm very happy that this melody and this chord progression are lined up, and that's just the ultimate confirmation that I have the right answer. And when the two line up, that's when I don't even feel the need to test my answer. I'm just 100% confident that I have the right notes and the right chords. And to be honest, most of the songs that I transcribe on a daily basis, I never even check them at the instrument. But that's something that you get to later. When you're learning this, it's certainly, you want to check your answers to know how you're doing. But when you're listening to music, out and about, when you're driving or, at the grocery store, you want to come up with these theories, and then as soon as you get home, you go to the piano and you test them out. So in this case, I'm really pleased that the melody and the chords line up. And one other thing is that it's good to imagine that you only get one shot at getting it right, and to imagine that your life depends on it. That's the best way to treat transcribing, is to take it very seriously and to go to all these extra lengths to make sure you have the right answer in your head before you go and test it out. Because you only get one chance to test it out, and once you've tested it out, you figure out the right answer very quickly. And as people have said, it's deceptively simple every time, and then suddenly, so basically take it as though you only have one shot, because that's when you learn. Okay, final song. It's going to be an Usher song. Again, we're going to listen to this as though it's in C minor. So, You Remind Me, song from, I don't know, probably the 90s. This was one of the songs that I learned on. I remember watching the music video and figuring out this by ear. So let's start with the melody for this one. We're in the key of C minor. Any theories as to what the notes are? Miles is saying pentatonic again. It is pentatonic again, and in fact I'm not deliberately choosing these songs to be pentatonic. It's just the way it goes. The rest of the songs you hear for the rest of today, I guarantee at least probably 90% of them are going to be mainly based on the pentatonic notes, which in C minor is C, E flat, F, G, B flat. Okay, so that said, can you tell me what these notes are? Perhaps slightly more difficult because it's descending. If it was going the other way, it might be a bit easier. Can you hear the root in this melody? Which note is the root? Ends on the root. That's correct, Miles, and a lot of people are saying it ends on the root. That's correct. The last note is the root. So once you know that note is a C, you can go backwards. Often when you're transcribing, you just figure out the last note and then you have to sort of backtrack. So what are the notes to this whole riff? Yes, people are doing a great job here. Starts on B flat, that's the minor seventh. B flat, G, F, E flat, C. So we hear our common shape in there. G, F, E flat, C. So this melody is pentatonic and it just jumps down the notes of C minor pentatonic scale. B flat, G, F, E flat, C. How about this second part of the melody? We know that this is C, C. Which notes are these playing? Quite a big leap. We could do a stepping stone here. Da, 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 da. If I sing a minor triad, I see that it matches. That quickly tells me that it's a fifth. I don't have to feel unsure whether it's a fifth or a fourth or potentially a sixth, but it's rare to be a sixth. So that's what I just hummed to myself quickly. So a fifth up from C would be G, C, G, down a step, C, G, F. We hear a repeated note, it ends on the root, which is C. We've heard that played a few times. So it's a repeat, so that means that it ends playing D, C, B flat, G, F, E flat, C, G, G, F, D, C. That's correct, Anthony? And these are just repeated notes, they're not new notes. That's the G, F again. That was quite a big leap. Do we have to figure out the interval? No, because if you just wait half a second later, it repeats the riff and you hear that it's actually the same note as the starting note. We've already figured out the starting note, that's correct, it's a B flat. So as you watch me transcribe, you'll see that in a way you're trying to be as lazy as you can. You don't want to do it the hard way. There's always, multiple ways you can do things, but usually you don't have to figure out a big interval. Usually, the intervals are a fifth or smaller, and if it does make a big leap, even a fifth is quite a big leap, well, there's always other ways to figure it out. So in this case, am I going to get stuck and just figure out this ascending interval? Do a stepping stone or just not feel confident that it's a fourth? No, in this case I'm just going to let the melody play on, and I'm sure the melody will give me some other clues that in this case it's actually the same as the starting note, and then that just, it means I don't have to do that work of figuring out the interval. How about this end part? This is a C. What are these notes? This is what I call common shape number 1. Yes, people are guessing it's E flat, F, G. So many songs that use this in their melodies. In fact, it would be hard to write a melody that doesn't use this little shape at some point. I'm trying to think of some songs, so I might have some songs here actually. Let's see, for that common shape. This is common shape number 1. I'd say that this is the equivalent of the word and in the human language. The word and, it's just hard not to use it. You use it all of the time. So I have a list here, Heaven by Bryan Adams. Boys of Summer. Anytime you hear two whole steps in a melody, it's almost guaranteed, well, very, very likely to be E flat, F, G, within our key of C minor, E flat major, time after time. We got Everywhere by Fleetwood Mac. There it is. So anyway, I could play songs all day that use that common shape. Guarantee that just about every song will use that common shape. So in this melody, that's that common shape number 1, E flat, F, G. So what note is this? E flat, F, G, A flat. I mean, do we have an A natural in our key of C minor? No, so it has to be A flat because that's the note in our key. Repeated notes, G, F, E flat, F, G, G. 3 blind mice sound, yes Anthony? So, you know, this is such a common shape. Either if you're in the major scale of E flat major, then it would be the root 2nd and 3rd, E flat, F, G. Or if you're thinking of the music as being in the relative minor scale of C minor, then it would be the minor 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. And we're just thinking more broadly in terms of the key here. It doesn't matter whether the song's in E flat major or C minor. You could actually debate that any song is in E flat major or in C minor. There's not really anything to say which one's right. So we're just listening as though it's in the key. This song actually is more minor sounding though, so it makes sense to call this C minor. So we figured it out now. D, C, B flat, G, F, E flat, C, G, F, B flat, B flat. D, C, E flat, F, G, A flat, G, F, E flat, F, G, G. And to finish with, let's just do the chords. There's only 3 chords in this one. What do you think the starting chord is? What would be the most logical starting chord? We're in C minor here. The clue is in the name of the key. It's correct, it's C minor, the 1 chord. So that tells us that the bass note is C. And we're just going to listen to the bass line here. So where does the bass line go next? Great here. This is a tricky one. As bass lines go, this is a big leap. It's not one of the usual 4 pop chords, which are generally easier to spot. You know, we've looked at this common shape for chords: C minor, B flat major, A flat major, B flat major. This one for the Usher song is a bit more complex to hear, at least. It's a big leap. It actually goes down a 5th to the 4 chord, which is F minor. And then if you know that that's F minor, then the next one becomes easy. Goes from F minor, to G minor. Just comes up a step with the bass line, and then up a 4th. If you couldn't figure out that descending 5th, because it is a bit tricky, just let the bass line play on. You can hear that it comes up a step, and then if you can identify the distance from this note to the starting note, then you'll be able to work backwards and figure it out. Dun, da, 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 da. If I use a stepping stone, just quickly tells me that a minor third plus a whole step is a fourth. So I can be confident that this is a G because it was a fourth below C, and then that means that the previous note must have been an F. So which three chords does that outline? C, F, and G within our key of C minor. Those chords are going to be C minor, the one chord, not C major, C minor. Yeah, that's correct. It's going to be F minor. Someone's saying G9. In this case, it's G minor. It's a normal 5 chord. This is the natural minor sound. It does not sound grandiose like a dominant 7 chord would. You know, a G dominant 7 sounds more classical music. It sounds more like Cuban salsa, you know. A G major chord would be a harmonic minor sound. There's a Santana song out. You know, that would be a G dominant 7 kind of sound, but this Usher song does not sound like that. Just sounds normal diatonic. So that means that this is C minor, F minor, and G minor. Now I think in the original there are actually sevenths added to all of those chords, so it's C minor 7, F minor 7, G minor 7, and that's sort of an R&B thing. You can kind of expect an R&B player to add sevenths. But essentially we've transcribed the chords now. Does that mean that we're all done? We transcribed the melody and then we transcribed the chords. Is that finished then? No, there's one final step that I like to go through, which is to check that the melody and the chords line up. I want them to point to the same answer, the same chords, and I'm expecting that the chords will play logical chords that have the melody notes in them. So over the C minor chord, I want to see some C's, E flats, and G's. Do we see any of that? Yeah, we see B flats, G, F, E flat, C. So we have G, E flat, C. We have all three of those chordal tones, so that's a match. Then for the F minor chord, we have a C in the melody. So C is good enough for me. There's only one note really here. So that's C, that goes with an F minor chord. I'd be worried if there was a D. That would not be lining up for me. That would indicate a wrong answer somewhere. But here we have C, that goes well with F minor. G, F, and then we have a G minor chord. We have a D, C, and yes, D lines up with G minor nicely, so that's telling me I have the right answer. So C, G, F, D, C. So D goes with G minor, and if we go on a bit, this is already telling me I have the right answer, but just to double check at the end. So here we have an F minor chord, and the melody note is A flat. That's a really nice, correlation there. That's telling me I have the right answer. We have a G minor chord, and it's not as nice of a fit as I'd like, but it does end on a G, which is good enough for me. Because G is a chordal tone, so it looks like the same chord. So we just transcribed our third song, Usher, You Remind Me. in there. Okay, so well done guys. We've just crossed an hour. That worked out quite neatly. We did 3 songs. So key takeaways from this. Before I go to key takeaways, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, especially also if you're watching this on the replay. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. And also if you could let me know a song that you'd like me to transcribe next week. This is going to be 10 a.m. Pacific time. This is Ear Training Live. I'm trying to do this every Monday. So key takeaways from this. Okay, we looked at some new common shapes. We had, this is the most common shape ever. You know, this is common shape number 1. E flat F G. I guarantee just about every song will play this at some point. Anytime you hear 2 whole steps in a row, virtually guaranteed to be E flat F G within our key of E flat major and C minor. Then we looked at another common shape which just keeps coming up over and over again. It's really common shape number 1, but just with a little add-on, C, E flat, F, G. And if I could teach you one common shape, this would be it. This just is so useful. I guarantee you'll hear this many times for the rest of the day. So we heard that in the Ed Sheeran song. Remember that common shape. And then we saw another melodic shape in the Gorillaz song, just running up the minor scale from the root to the 5th. That you hear often. That's Cry Me a River, by the way, by Justin Timberlake. So that's another common shape we looked at. And then the chords, there weren't really anything that I'd call a common shape. I mean, they're quite common shapes. The C minor going to the F minor, the G minor. It's not a super common shape. It's not high on the priority list though for you to memorize. I'd start with the chords focusing on the common shape we looked at last time. C minor, B flat major, and A flat major. So mainly focus on the melodic shapes. You could use these in your composition. It's always a good idea to compose using these. Well, anything new that you learn when you write a composition in it, it really hardwires it to your brain. Okay, so this is pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Thank you everyone for being involved. It's been really nice seeing the comments coming in and being able to feed off that. Taking notes. Boaz, I'm glad you were taking notes. Well, you know what, you can watch the replay, and actually I have a gift for you guys. So I am recording the audio for this on my professional microphones. After this is finished, I'm going to export it. I'll at least cut out the intro and the outro, and you can download the MP3 to this in the description link below. I haven't put it there yet, so you'll have to check back in about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, or tomorrow if you're going to bed. And that way you can download the audio, or at least I'll email it to you as soon as it's ready. And then you can like listen to this on the go if you'd like to, you know, go through this for repeat viewing. So there'll be a link in the description box. You can download that for free. Apart from that, you can go to themusicalear.com. I've been adding a lot more blog posts on ear training. You can sign up for email ear training tips. This is a weekly email newsletter. And of course you can comment below any songs that you'd like me to cover next time. Certainly open to requests. And of course you can watch my free video series on ear training at themusicalear.com. Basically everything I have on ear training is neatly organized at themusicalear.com. So I'm going to wrap this up because it's getting long, but I had a great time. I really enjoyed doing this live. And apart from that, I'm going to be doing this next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'd love to have you here. And thank you everyone for all these lovely comments that are coming through. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. There'll be the usual few awkward seconds as I figure out how to end this live stream. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream. This was lovely, 10x, this was great. Thank you so much, guys, for all these comments coming in. This is really nice. All right, can't wait for next week. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll be posting some videos during the week. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.